Let's run through Ruby Life Pools, covering the important trash mechanics, interrupts, positioning, and every boss fight. Starting toward the first boss, watch the Primal Juggernauts. Their excavating blast deals heavy group damage, so be careful when combining these mobs with larger pulls. Tanks, prepare a defensive for crushing smash. Interrupt the casters as much as possible, and healers should keep an eye on dispels throughout these packs. Defier Dragger is the mini-boss on this path. Steel Barrage deals heavy damage, so tanks should use defensives and the group should be ready for incoming damage. Keep moving out of the fire puddles. When Dragger uses Blazing Rush, get out of his path before he charges through you. For Melidrussa Chillworn, keeping the group relatively stacked makes the fight easier to control. Interrupt Frigid Shard as much as possible. Hailburst deals group damage and creates icy areas on the floor. Stay clear of them as they build up around the room. Now, when Chillstorm targets a player, you'll see the circle and ice effect around them. That player should run toward an open edge of the room, away from the existing ice. Chillstorm will begin pulling the group toward the targeted player, so everyone else should keep running in the opposite direction. If you're targeted, use the available space and take the storm away from the group. Around 60% and again near 30%, Melidrussa casts Awaken Whelps. The tank needs to grab the adds quickly while the group cleaves them down. Their attacks apply a stacking debuff to the group. Don't allow it to reach 20 stacks. Dispels and movement freedom effects can remove the debuff. Handle the whelps, control Chillstorm, and repeat until Melidrussa is down. On the way to Kokia, the large elemental's fiery blast should be interrupted. When the elemental dies, it causes a large explosion around its location, so clear the area immediately. The Ashir Flame Lasher uses Flaming Barrage, a dangerous tank hit. Tanks should prepare defensives here. Some enemies can gain shields, and those shields can be purged. You'll also find casters standing farther back in these packs. Interrupt them so they move toward the tank and stack with the rest of the pull. If you have a Death Knight, gripping them into the group makes this much easier. If you're marked with the fire circle and red arrow, move away from the group. Use a minor defensive if needed and keep the effect away from your teammates. For Kokia Blazehoof, tanks should use the edges of the room. The fight creates permanent fire zones, so keeping the middle clear gives the group more space later. Ritual of Blaze Binding marks a player with a yellow arrow and fire circle. Take the marker toward one of the available edges. Do not drop it in the center. An elemental will spawn from the marker. Kill it quickly and interrupt its casts. When the elemental dies, move out of the explosion. It will also leave a large fire puddle where it died, which is why placing these elementals around the edges is so important. Molten Boulder sends a large fireball across the room. Stay out of its path. If your group stays together and works from the edges, the boulder becomes much easier to predict without covering the center of the arena. The main priority remains the same. Place those elementals near the corners. Tanks should also prepare defensives for searing blows. Repeat the pattern until Kokia is down. On the final path, Primal Thundercloud shields can be purged. Be ready for their explosions and keep moving when needed. Tempest Channelers cast Lightning Torrent. If you're targeted, use a defensive. Interrupt the remaining casts as much as possible. If your timer allows it, clearing this area in 2 or 3 controlled pulls can make the final boss fight much easier. The mini-boss High Channeler Raivati uses Tempest Storm Shield. When this shield appears, the entire group should switch to it and destroy it before it expires. If the shield survives, Raivati will hit the group with a mass stun and heavy damage. Burn the shield immediately. For Kyrakka and Erkhart Stormvein, bring the fight closer to the entrance. This gives the group more control over the available space. Avoid Kyrakka's frontal roaring fire breath, and ranged DPS should attack the dragon whenever possible. When Erkhart casts Winds of Change, the wind can push players off the platform. Use the 2 columns nearby to help block the push and keep yourself safely on the platform. Inferno Spit marks 2 players with red arrows and circles. Those players should spread toward the edges and drop the fire puddles away from the group. Have a defensive ready for the hit. Good placement here is important because these puddles will slowly reduce your available space. One last mechanic to watch is interrupting Cloudburst. When the boss begins this cast, stop casting spells. If you continue casting, you'll be silenced. So casters, hands off the buttons for a moment. Yes, I understand. Asking a mage to stop casting may violate several laws of Azeroth. Leave a like if this guide helped you and check out our Midnight Season 2 guides.